Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are breaking down some absolutely fascinating research from the AMA Journal of Ethics. We're going to explore a topic that touches, well, literally every single one of us, how our digital lives and our screen time are directly affecting our real-world well-being. It's a deep dive into the incredibly complex relationship between the internet and human loneliness, all guided by the groundbreaking research of Drs. Andrew P. Smith and Hassa El-Hanidi.
It's the core paradox we all feel, right? I mean, on one hand, we have the entirety of human connection sitting right there in our pockets, but on the other hand, rates of loneliness are a massive global health concern right now. So this sets up the central mystery we are trying to solve today. Is the internet primarily a tool for connection, or has it sort of become a crutch for isolation?
So here is our roadmap for today. First, the internet paradox. Then, displacement versus stimulation. We'll look at the COVID-19 stress test, the impact across generations, and finally, striking the right balance.
All right, Section 1, the Internet Paradox.
Now, you might be thinking worrying about screen time is a totally new trend, but the scientific debate over the Internet's impact on our community life and our mental health actually started way back in the 1990s. Even those early studies were finding that greater Internet use was associated with smaller social circles and increased depression. Today, we really need to put our daily internet habits under the microscope. We have to look closely at the very fabric of our digital lives to understand their true impact on our physical and mental health.
So before we get too deep, it's absolutely crucial that we clearly distinguish between a few terms here. The research defines loneliness as the feeling we get when our fundamental need for rewarding social contact just isn't met. It elevates our stress, it harms our physical health. Contrast that with internet addiction. That is compulsive use that actually impairs your real-life activities at work or home, complete with actual withdrawal signs. And then problematic internet use is kind of that broader category of internet misuse that just casts a negative shadow over your daily life.
Moving on to Section 2, displacement versus stimulation. To figure out exactly why we might feel lonely in a hyper-connected world, researchers generally look through the lens of two completely opposing psychological hypotheses. It really comes down to our fundamental intentions when we log on. So the displacement hypothesis argues that people use the internet to actively escape from the social world, and by withdrawing from offline interactions, they actually increase their feelings of loneliness. On the flip side, you have the stimulation hypothesis. This argues that when the internet is used as a tool to enhance existing social relationships, to coordinate a meetup, to catch up, to video call a friend, it actually reduces loneliness.
But man, here is where it gets incredibly tricky. It is a bidirectional relationship. Feeling lonely makes you want to scroll more to seek out some kind of connection. But then, scrolling more passively without creating real rewarding connections just makes you lonelier. It's a total vicious cycle.
Which brings us to Section 3, the COVID-19 stress test.
Think back to the lockdowns. They served as a massive, involuntary global experiment on extreme internet reliance, where our absolute only window to the outside world was often just a screen. During this intense isolation, virtual communities definitely offered some social resources, but the research is very clear on this. These digital identity bubbles often fail to replace our deep human need for intimate physical relationships. In fact, relying solely on virtual friendships left a lot of people completely unshielded from profound psychological discomfort and perceived social isolation.
And the data paints a really compelling picture here. A survey of Italian adults showed that excessive time spent passively scrolling social media during lockdown was directly tied to anxiety and perceived loneliness. But contrast that with a study of middle-aged and older English adults. In that group, those who used the internet daily specifically for active communication actually felt less lonely than those who used it rarely. It just proves that active communication provides relief, whereas passive scrolling fuels anxiety.
All right, Section 4, impact across generations.
We also really need to zoom out and look at the global picture, because vulnerability to problematic internet use is a universal human issue. In Turkey, researchers saw adolescents facing severe spikes in internet addiction as they tried to cope with restricted real-life contacts. Meanwhile, in an age-friendly city in Taiwan, the elderly successfully used the internet to mitigate their loneliness. Yet, over in China, a different study found that to fight internet addiction among the elderly, what they really needed was an increase in real-life physical social support.
And to put the sheer scale of this into perspective, these findings are consistent globally. Across Kuwait and Saudi Arabia, over 500 survey participants revealed a pretty surprising trend. Younger adults actually reported greater loneliness than older ones. Why? Well, because the young adults were frequently using social media to doom scroll for pandemic news. That was driving up their anxiety and isolation, proving once again that how you use the internet dictates how it makes you feel.
Let's bring it home with Section 5, Striking the Right Balance.
So we've looked at the science, the global data, the psychological theories. Now, how do we actually apply this research to optimize our own digital well-being and actively balance our online and offline relationships? Let's dive into the actionable advice. Step 1. Evaluate your usage. Are you logging on to escape the social world or to enhance it? You've got to be really honest with yourself here. Step 2. Prioritize active communication. Use your devices to set up calls, coordinate meetups, and talk directly to people rather than just passively liking photos. And Step 3. Invest in real-life social support. The research explicitly tells us that in-person interactions remain the absolutely most effective strategy to combat feelings of isolation. We have to purposefully integrate that stimulation hypothesis into our daily routines.
If you take away literally just one thing from this explainer today, make it this. The internet is not inherently good or bad. It is a powerful tool. It's an amplifier. Its impact on your loneliness depends entirely on the specific nature of how you use it and your own personal characteristics. If you use it as a substitute for human connection, you're likely going to feel emptier. But if you use it as a bridge to facilitate real human connection, you will thrive.
So, I want to leave you with a bit of a challenge. Take a look at your screen time today. Look at the apps you frequent the most. The next time you open your phone or log on to your computer, just stop and ask yourself, are you building a bridge to the real world or are you building a wall to hide behind? The choice is entirely in your hands. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this helps you build a more balanced, connected life.